Good morning, everyone. Today is the day before Thanksgiving, and I am joined by our client relations specialist, Chyna Corbett, today.
Hi.
And I am Jen Bordeaux coming at you with another segment of Family Law Uncorked. So, 2020 has been a crazy year for a lot of different reasons. And, this time of year, you and I were just talking about yesterday a little bit about like thankfulness and being grateful. And now is really the time that a lot of people start to really focus on that, what we are grateful for. And it can be really hard during this year and everything that's happened to sometimes find the positives and the silver linings. But I do think that once you look at that, it does kind of fill your heart with happiness, and you do find those small things that you're super grateful and blessed to still have in your life. But one being technology, because you and I are across town from one another, but we're still able to come together and talk about this topic. So today we're going to get a little bit in our feels. We are going to talk about, you and I come from two different perspectives in talking about grief. And it may not be the most uplifting topic, but we're all experiencing some sort of grief. We've all experienced it at some time in our lives and are all kind of experiencing it since March, since everything shut down and our lives have been forever changed. In addition to that, we each have personal experiences that we're going to share a little bit about here in just a moment. But we wanted to bring this topic up because we work with folks on a daily basis. We talk to numerous people every day that are going through separation, divorce, maybe a custody dispute, something under the family law umbrella. And when someone picks up that phone, and Chyna, you're the person who usually is their first point of contact, we've said it numerous times, and the other times we talked about this, that's likely the first time that they are expressing what's going on or admitting it out loud for the first time that they are going through this. And that that initiates a grieving process. Yeah. In understanding that now my life has changed because I'm going through this separation situation or whatever it may be. And that can invoke a lot of feelings, but grief is grief. And while it may not be the exact same path for every single person, going through a divorce is another type of loss in many different ways. And so we wanted to bring this to light to share our two different perspectives with grief, to show the similarities and the recognition that it's okay to grieve. It's necessary to grieve. And then share some tips on what's helped us individually with our journey with grief. I think it's ongoing. Especially timeline, especially depending upon what the loss is that you're dealing with. But I think you have to face it. You have to feel to heal is what I've always been telling myself. So with that, we'll jump right into it. And if you're okay, I'd like to have you share your story with grief. Most recently, not only has 2020 just been a hard year because of life changes, but unfortunately you lost your father this year, back in August. And so that when people think of grief, I think that's the first thing they think of is whenever they lose a loved one that that has passed away. And so how has that been for you? I mean, I feel like it's probably just been a perfect storm of just this terrible year of 2020 anyway that everybody kind of jokes about. But there's some truth to it on top of your personal situation with this. So, whatever you feel comfortable or happy to share there.
Well, I feel like my grieving process started before my dad passed away. He, was diagnosed with cancer. And when we found out in May that, there was nothing else they could do, I feel like that's when the process kind of started for me, grieving the loss that hadn't happened yet. And so when he actually passed away, I feel like I almost had a little bit of buildup of already dealing with all of these different crazy emotions. And so when he passed away, it was just, okay, this is real. I had thought about it and what it was going to be like, but you can't ever really prepare yourself for how you're going to actually feel and like the void that you feel, and you want them back, but they're not coming back. So it has been a roller coaster of I try to be thankful for the things that he was there for, but I'm sad for the things that he's not going to be here for anymore. The holidays, my birthday, God forbid if I ever get married, things like that. But I just try to be thankful, for the things that he was here for. but that some days doesn't get me through. Some days I'm just angry, I'm upset, I'm sad. I feel like it's good days and bad days, and like I said before, I feel like I have one foot in this life when he was here and one foot in this new life. And I feel like it kind of racks my brain with work and things like that, because I think about people who are maybe knowing or expecting that their marriage is failing and their family's falling apart, so they kind of have that same sort of buildup like I did, in a sense of knowing what's coming, the inevitable. But then once it actually happens, you feel like you've been hit by a train. You're just like, I thought I would feel all of these emotions, but now that I'm actually feeling them, it just is completely different. But for me, it's more so just getting day to day. It's not something I try to think too far ahead about or overwhelm myself with. I just really have to take it, sometimes one day at a time, just to get through it and process how I'm feeling, and, really understanding my grief and how it's best for me to get from day to day with all of these crazy emotions sometimes.
Yeah, and first of all, thank you for sharing that. I think there's so many things that you just said that were just like, oh yes, I feel that, or made me think of, in relation to how we assist people every day. But one, I think knowing that your grief journey is unique and individual to you, right? And so, like you said, taking it day by day, because you being willing to share your story and to talk about, the loss of your dad and everything, you never know when that's going to be a trigger. Like sometimes you're completely okay, talking about it, like, yes, it is what it is. And it's not fun, obviously, and you miss him dearly and you wish this wasn't the case, but you feel strong today and you can talk about this without, maybe getting emotional. Other days, something as small as just hearing the word dad can trigger.
Yes, and a puddle of tears ensues. But I feel like for me, I have found that I like to grieve in private. I don't know, I just like to grieve to myself, and I feel like I'm such a strong person, and I'm like, okay, I'll cry in private and then go on my day and then I'll feel better. But I've kind of learned that, like, I have to really acknowledge my grief and acknowledge what I've been through is not just, some small thing that needs to be rushed. I mean, I'm 3 months into this since he passed away, but I feel like it's going to be something I'm dealing with forever. It may lessen or it may get better, that I don't know, but I just, try to remember that I need to acknowledge that and acknowledge that this is not fun. This is not a good feeling. Some days you're mad, some days you're pissed off, some days you're sad, some days you're okay. And I just have found that it's important to not try to stuff all that down and forget about it and just feel it.
Yeah, which sometimes that can be the hardest thing, is just allowing yourself to feel, because it's not going to be pleasant.
Yes.
Something else that you said is, and being that your dad was sick and unwell for several months leading up to his passing in peace, was that you knew that this was coming and that it was inevitable, unfortunately, when you received that news in May. And so you started a grieving process then. And so I think that is also relatable in certain situations with separation and divorce, because sometimes you're blindsided by the situation. If you're what we have a leaning in and a leaning out spouse, and the leaning out spouse is the person who's kind of maybe initiating or bringing up, the separation or divorce. And then, your leaning in spouse is the one that maybe didn't know about it or is not necessarily wanting the divorce. So when you're blindsided, I think that's immediately people think about grief and emotional turmoil and stuff with divorce. However, there are situations where the discussion of separation has been on the table for both, for the spouses. Mm-hmm. And finally, maybe after trying, they have the discussion about it, they maybe try counseling, and then things get better for a little bit, and then the separation conversation kind of pops back up. And so similar to what you were expressing, in that you kind of start to, if these conversations and thoughts about, especially even when talking with your spouse, even if it is amicable, you're starting that conversation of, okay, well, this is just where we are, and we're coming to an agreement, this isn't working and we should separate. You might, before you officially, pull the trigger of actually separating, start to feel some of that grief, because you're going to start to have some of those thoughts of, man, we got married, and, this is failing, and this is a loss, and things like that. And I don't think people necessarily think about that, or even the spouse, going back to leaning in, leaning out, the leaning out spouse, maybe the initiator in the situation, they still have to go through a grieving process or not. Whether they do or don't, it's obviously individual, but it's still a grieving process of a relationship that, whether you recognize that it needs to come to an end or not, still that end of a relationship, and it's never going to be the same. So there's still, that grieving process with that. So great points that you brought up there. So, and I can relate to this just because I went through a divorce a few years ago, and it really is. You never know when you're in the thick of it. You never know what emotion is going to be elicited that day, or what emotions on throughout the day are going to be elicited. Some days you wake up, you feel, like I said, very strong. You're ready to move on with the day and accept this new reality and do what you have to do to start moving forward in that new reality. Other days you wake up and you're like, nope, don't want to get out of bed today. Just can't mentally or emotionally fathom doing anything but rolling over to my other side and ignoring the world for the day. And then some days it's somewhere in between. And that's, it's such a moving, I guess, spectrum of emotions. It's exhausting. But, like you said, in grieving differently, you choose to grieve more privately, which is totally good. And what works for you, other people need, a whole support team around them, because you're dealing with a loss. So switching gears, definitely talking, about your dad, but then looking at 2020 and everything with COVID and the pandemic, what I feel like we as a world, honestly, because it's global, are grieving. So in what ways do you maybe feel that you felt some of that grief with the ongoing public health crisis?
Well, switching from going into the office every day and being with my work family and seeing clients, switching to trying to give, that support to our clients at work, because it's so important. And now only being able to do that over the phone and things like that, that's something that I really, really miss. Of course, social events and the freedom to just go out and have fun. I've learned a lot about, myself in these past 8 months, because I've spent a lot of time by myself at home. So, I feel like it's pretty similar for a lot of people in that our lives have changed, and not just my dad passing away, but before that, my life had changed with work and friends and trying to just stay safe and stay healthy and stay sane. So I don't know, it's definitely been a little tricky at times, but I don't have a choice right now. And so I just try to make it work, but give, as far as work goes, give our clients the support that they need, whether it be over the phone or a video chat or an email. I'm not in the office and I can't see you guys all the time, but we're still here, we're still working, so it's kind of been a little tricky to find that happy medium with feeling like you're still doing your best, you're still moving forward in life, but everything is within a day or two just completely changed.
Yeah. I think too with grief, whether it's dealing with the grief of the loss of the life that we once knew before COVID kind of blew up all of our worlds, because it is it's forever changed. Individually, when the day comes and we're able to resume, concerts and, in-person, events and gatherings and things like that, we're still, it's a mental shift for everyone, thinking about, spreading a virus. And there's been quite a span of us now having to be socially distanced and not being able to be close to even some of our closest loved ones, in fear of either getting sick or getting the other person sick. So, so that, it's dealing with all of that. But I think grief as a whole, there's a component of uncertainty to it, and that's what can make it so difficult as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think whenever you're feeling the pain, like loss, you know, like the loss of your family member, the loss of your dad, or, you know, whenever I or several of our clients are going through divorce, you're dealing with the loss of your spouse, the relationship and the life that you once knew as a couple, or the family unit, then you don't know, you want to feel better, right? We innately want to feel better, and we don't know when that time's going to come. Just like with COVID, we don't know when, you know, there's hope. Whatever talk has been out there about vaccines, there's definitely hope, but there's still so much uncertainty. And that comes with healing from the loss of a loved one or the loss of going through divorces, that you don't know when you're going to feel better. Like, you can't just wake up one day and you're like, oh, I'm going to feel better tomorrow. I know I will.
There's not like a time stamp put on your grieving process. Like, oh, you know, you'll feel better in 3 weeks or 6 months. I mean, it may be something that, you know, you do feel good for 3 weeks or 6 months, and then all of a sudden you kind of crash and burn. But I think that's just normal. And I think that's what makes us human beings. And just all of these, you know, we're capable of feeling all of these different emotions at any time. And so for me, like I said, I just have to just go with it. You know, I try to stay positive as always. My mom instilled that with, you know, in me, be positive regardless of what situation you're in. And it's not an ideal situation, but, you know, I have to be thankful for the things that I do have. You know, I'm still here. Heart still beating. I'm still kicking. And so I need to just be thankful for that. Like, I still have a life to live. I'm still existing. And so just go through those motions and feel it.
Yeah, well, we are first of all thankful that you are still here as well. You know, and also, you know, I know that I unfortunately never got the chance to meet your dad, but I know that he would want you to do the same. You know, that you do still have a very full life ahead of you to live and everything. And I think, you know, just uncertainty is just hard. We as human beings, uncertainty is just hard to grapple with and to be okay with, and not knowing when there's, you know, an end or something to look forward to, kind of thing. So it's very new, and this has been a long-standing uncertainty for all of us. And when you're going through separation or divorce, especially when it's initiated, there's the whole legal side that it's so uncertain. You don't know how all that works. And that's where we come into play. That's where you're phenomenal in talking to people and helping them understand, you know, what the process is, that, you know, rest assured, you called the right place. We can assist you. You do have rights. You know, you let one of our attorneys talk to you about those, find out what's going on, and work with you for your particular situation. So, yeah, uncertainty is hard. And I think absolutely an unmentioned part of grief. You know, there's all the stages, the 5 or 7 stages, whichever model you subscribe to or look at. But I think uncertainty is a big piece of that too. So we talked about grief and the similar, you know, feelings that we experience in different forms of grief or causes of grief. So let's end on a positive note about some things that have helped us in getting through that. Because I think, like you mentioned, and we've mentioned previously too about the triggers, you know, that like 6 months from now, you may be doing well for 3 weeks, 6 months, and then all of a sudden something happens. And I know for you and I, we're both music people. And so I'm almost 3 years into the divorce, and I can still hear a certain song. Maybe it's been before a song that I've never even heard before. And just something about the lyrics will just trigger, and it, you know, and I'll be a puddle of tears. And I used to look at it as, oh my gosh, I'm not healing. Why am I still crying over this? But I think it's just, you know, that was a part of your life. It's a chapter in your book of life. And it may not be the defining narrative, but it is a narrative as part of your life. And so, like you said, you've got to honor those feelings. When they come, just let them happen and let them go. It doesn't mean that you're regressing back, you know, in your healing or progression in that. So what has helped you with, and like we've said, grief is an ongoing journey. So it's not like I'm saying that you are done with grief, because none of us are. But what has helped you up to this point? I mean, from the time, I mean, honestly, I'd imagine from when you first found out about your dad's diagnosis, several, you know, I don't even know exactly how long ago it was, but all the way to the terminal stages of it.
Yeah. So for me, a big thing has been therapy. I know I said I grieve in private, and I do, but speaking to a third party that has these resources and this different way of thinking and helping me find out the best way for me to, deal with it and express myself has helped a lot. I started going to therapy, a couple years ago, and it has just worked wonders for me. And I know there's, a stigma, and I don't want to talk to someone about my feelings and things like that. But for me, it has just, instead of stuffing everything down and it exploding, and I'm like, what do? I can feel these emotions and acknowledge these feelings and let them go and move on. And so that's been big for me. I mean, I started revisiting my therapist when, we got the news that dad was stage 4 and there was nothing else they could do. And she helped me because I had a lot of anxiety about his passing and what it was going to be like after. So she really helped me kind of process those feelings and calm those fears a little bit. Like, you will be okay. Yes, you'll be able to be there for your mom and be strong for her, but you also you can't neglect yourself and your feelings because you're trying to be there for someone else. So that has helped me a lot. And I'm so thankful. And even if it was, Zoom therapy in my bedroom on a Saturday morning, it was just having, someone that can professionally just help me just get through what's going on in my life. And, that has just been, I'm so thankful for that because it's just been a big outlet for me, a good positive outlet just to get it out, deal with it so I can move on with my day and my life and kind of what's happening and not be so felt like I'm drugged down by, grief and all of those crazy emotions.
Yeah. And I think, as you know, we pretty much any person that walks in our door for a consultation or used to walk in our door that pops into a Zoom room or on a phone call, we recommend that they see a therapist. You and I sharing our experiences with grief and stuff. Let's put it out there. We're not mental health professionals. Okay.
No, I will listen and try to help you feel better for the time being and do the best that I can. But, I'm not a professional in helping you deal with your specific, situation and things of that nature.
Yeah. So we recommend for people to go see therapists, and we have several people that we know, like, and trust that we refer to depending upon all kinds of things. Location, which isn't as big of an issue now since everything is telehealth, but if there's children involved, are you looking for therapy for the children if there are children involved? Individual therapy. We refer out to marriage counselors as well. All kinds of things and different fits for different people. It is so important to work with a therapist that you do feel comfortable with. Yeah. I too, when I went through the divorce, I took the advice. It took me a little bit to get there, but I took the advice. I finally took the advice that we tell our clients or potential clients of going and seeing a therapist. And I echo your sentiments. It is such a help. Yeah, and you might sit there and think, well, why is me just sitting there talking to some random person about my situation? How is that going to help me? But I think, for me, one of the things is since they are so removed from your situation, one, I think sometimes we feel guilty for burdening our family members or closest friends, our loved ones with what's going on. And they, of course, are a little biased because they see our pain and they know us individually. And maybe they're going to offer some, advice or something from a personal experience of their own or a friend's, experience or something like that. Whereas with the therapist, it's an unbiased third party. One, they're going to give it to you straight, right? Like, they're going to listen, but they're also going to give it to you straight, but they're also going to be able to just listen in such an unbiased manner to really assist you in maybe changing your perspective or understanding that it truly is going to be okay, or to provide, support and, recommendations and advice for being able to move through your feelings and the grief without, without some sort of lens or protective, lens on it. And it can really just be that source of straight support, not to mention they're licensed, right? So they know how the brain works. They are more in tune with how emotions work and moving through all of that and how that's going to be. So
and to help you, for me, make you deal with these feelings instead of just pretending like they're either not there or not wanting to deal with it, because that's a lot of time is a, it's a natural reaction. Like, I don't even want to deal with this. I don't want to think about it. But for me, it's, pulling those emotions out and those feelings in those situations and facing them head on, which is sometimes the scariest part, but being able to just like feel relief and deal with it and let it go and not feel burdened, but do it in a healthy way.
Yeah. And they also can offer exercises or resources, right? Whether it's a book. I've had therapists recommend books to me that have been so helpful, whether it's an exercise like writing in a journal or getting a coloring book or, writing a letter or whatever it may be. They know these different resources that have helped different people in different ways. So therapists, 100%. And there are different therapists that specialize or focus in different areas of therapy. So if it's more individual relationship, anxiety, depression kind of things, there are therapists that specialize in grief and the loss of loved ones and things like that. So definitely a great resource. Last question, and then we'll wrap it up. But so therapy, obviously having, some sort of a support system, whether that is just a therapist, family and friends, dogs, Lord knows my dogs, and I've seen Piper there in the background.
Your worker.
Yeah, are tremendous. I mean, my dogs have definitely kept me sane especially through all this time at home by myself. So those you mentioned the quiet moments whenever, spending time being alone, home alone a lot. In those quiet moments when you're faced with yourself and your thoughts and nothing else, because sometimes that's where a lot of the most, prudent work comes from, some of the hardest work, because you don't have someone to distract you or to talk to you. What has helped you get through those moments? Because I know personally, some of those quiet moments, like, it's tough. Like, I'm talking down on the ground or throwing something because I thought maybe something breaking would ease how I was feeling, or to thoughts of like, man, am I going crazy because I'm sitting here crying by myself? So what during those quiet moments has helped you through it?
Music, for sure. I'm a huge music person. I just feel like it helps me just get through hard times, listening to something upbeat and lifting. My quiet moments and my hardest moments are when I'm driving. I don't know what it is, but I guess I focus on the road, but I find myself like lost in these like random thoughts. Or like you said, you'll hear a song and I'm like, oh gosh, like that's sad. So definitely music. Piper for sure, because I live alone, and she, over the past couple of years has just been like my little security and my comfort. And she doesn't judge me and she doesn't talk back. So I can just cry and she'll watch and stare at me and listen. But I don't know. I mean, exercising has helped as well. Just feeling like I can if I ever have any of that just mad aggression, just like put it towards something. And I try to focus on, doing things in a healthy way. I think, if you need to burst into tears and cry to feel better, then just do it. And then try to move on with your day. And it may happen tomorrow and the next day, but if you just, like you said, you feel, you heal. So for me in those moments, I'm just like, okay, I'm either going to deal with this right now, we're going to get it over with, or I'm going to blast some like good music that makes me feel happy and dance around and just try not to think about it. So I don't know, it can go either way. Like I said, it depends on what day it is, what I'm thinking about, and how I'm feeling. But for me, it's just really acknowledging how I feel is most important to me, and trying not to stuff it down or like totally forget about it, because I don't want it to burden me more, in the future by just trying to forget about it. And I think things like this, I mean, I thought when my dad died, I was like, everyone's just going to forget about him. And I'm just going to be stuck just like, hey, remember him, how great he was. So I think me being so open about how terrible of a time this has been has helped me kind of like keep his memory alive in a sense. It's not like, oh, our dad died and she reclused and doesn't talk to anyone. It's like, no, I'm open about it. Like, my dad was great. I miss him so much. this is how I'm feeling. And I think that has just helped me find like comfort and peace, and I'm not just forgetting about them. Or, same thing with a separation and divorce. Like, you think about those good times, you share those good times when you are a family unit, and you're grieving the loss that you may not have that anymore, but like you said, that's still a chapter in your book, and that's what you need to acknowledge, that it happened, and those were good times in your life. And so for me, it's just important to try to like remember that.
Yeah, such a good point. Such a good point. I think it just culminates with giving you, in those quiet moments, giving yourself permission and the grace to feel however you feel, and to know that there is no right or perfect way to grieve. There are definitely some methods that are healthier than others. But everyone goes through it. We are all human. We have all dealt with and will continue to deal with some sort of grief and loss in our lives, no matter what that looks like. So that's why I titled this Different Loss, Same Pain, because there are so many different types of losses, and the pain is real, and one is not less painful than the other. And so we just have to honor ourselves and honor each other, and give each other and ourselves that grace to feel that, and to heal, and to feel whatever it is that we're feeling. So thank you so much for joining me today and talking about this, and being willing to share, your story with grief and your ongoing journey with it, and honoring your dad's memory. I'm glad that we could do that today as well. And for those of us, or for those, us, I'll include myself in that, having gone, or going through separation or divorce, it's okay to accept it as a grief. It's a life-changing experience, and it is a type of loss, and the grief needs to happen. That grieving process needs to happen, and we are just a piece of that can help take away some of that uncertainty with the legal process, and explain how that works, and to be a stronghold for you, and help you know that you will get to the other side of this. You will feel better, you will feel stronger, and you'll find a resilience in yourself, no matter what kind of loss you go through, that you never knew existed inside of you. And you'll find that, and you will feel like such an amazing person for it. So the pain and the loss sucks, no way around it, but you can get through it, and make it to the other side, and then be able to share your story and help others along the way as well. So
yeah, you still have a life to live. So, you just have to kind of one day at a time, and keep going and enjoy it. Be thankful.
yeah. Well, guys, if anybody needs to reach out to us, has any questions, any, therapist recommendations, or of course are in need of legal advice and representation related to a family law matter, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at our office number, which is 919-719-3470. You will likely hear the wonderful Chyna, Corbett answer and help you through the process. And we are happy to help you in whatever way that we can. So again, Chyna, thank you so much for joining me, especially the day before Thanksgiving. For all of those watching, I hope you all have a wonderful and happy, healthy Thanksgiving. Stay safe, count your blessings, and be grateful. Thanks so much, Chyna.
Bye.